What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. In today's episode, kind of just giving you a brief outline of what's going on in my personal business and just some advice on really growth and different challenges that I know that some of you are going through and really wanting some insight on how to overcome. So check this one out. Always appreciate you guys listening to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. And this episode starts right now. Contractors all over the world are wanting more time, more freedom, more impact. The way we do this is through implementing systems, processes, standards. Welcome to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. Here we hit business strategy, coaching, mindset, motivation, the tools you need for success. So strap in, listen up, and get ready to grow on the Contractor Secrets Podcast. What's up, everyone? It is so nice to be back. Man, it has been a crazy sequence of weeks. I feel as though each week I get busier and busier as I continue to create, build, and expound upon my businesses. And man, I just want to thank each and every one of you for checking out this podcast. I hope that it gives you, really, if anything, it gives you some motivation. Hearing from all sorts of different people and different scenarios and different outcomes and it's really endearing to have some of you reach out to me and tell me the benefit that you're getting from this podcast. So as I'm mulling over what to talk about here, it has been a massive week for the premium painting team. Those of you who follow this podcast intently, you may know that it did take me a little while to get that third crew up and running. I may have even mentioned on here that I'm not going to do it, or I may have mentioned that I tried to do it. Now is the time. We bought the third van. We are on our way to 3 crews. That should put us at a little over 1.3 million in sales once we're fully optimized. So what's interesting is that some of the thoughts that I had going into that really, were fear-based thoughts of what if and how can I, and all the things that I try to help knock down when people bring me barriers of growth at different levels and stages, whether that's first removing yourself and then getting a crew and then, doing more sales and doing sales only and letting that crew work independently, and then maybe getting another crew and investing more in marketing. And it's interesting. It's once you hit a certain level, it's really just about duplicating what worked. And really what I focus on a lot in this podcast is helping people identify what works or create a system to help them identify what works so they can either fix it or refine it. And that's kind of the mindset you have to have in businesses. You look at something, and that's usually a process or a system, and you say, can I make this better? And really, I mean, I look at this every single day in people's businesses, especially when it comes to not only the business breakthroughs or it comes to somebody wanting to use Dripjobs. It's like, well, what is your system doing and can it be better? And usually, if the answer to that is yes, then it's always a good idea to invest in it because that's going to give you more time, resources, and ultimately clarity on what the next step is. And I feel like we've really refined our system. And that was really interesting. I do have some insight on the fact that I kind of was a little lazy on the estimating side in terms of how I went about estimates in my business. It was heavily reliant upon my knowledge. So those of you who know my system, and I'll kind of give you a brief synopsis on what that looks like. I have a crew of 4. Ran by Shamel. They're like my powerhouse team, man. They knock it out. Shamel, Dan, and Chris. Phenomenal team. Any challenge I put them on, they will knock it out. They get the big jobs. They get the full interiors. They get the picky customers. They get the high-end spraying. And it's led by Shamel, and he does an amazing job. Great friend, just an ideal individual for the role. Takes it seriously, represents us well, takes ownership. Just the mentality of company first. All the intangibles that you want in a leader. Shamel showcases day in and day out. And what's interesting is that those of you may know, briefly talked about him. And then if you heard my talk at the Impact event that I went up to for Corey, you would have heard the story behind Shamel, is how he kind of just started out as a painter and worked his way up and wanted to buy a house, and he got a house, and it's just been awesome seeing his growth. So that's crew number 1. Crew number 2 is led by Ray. He actually replaced my long tenured Louie, which you may have heard on the podcast as well, who is an all around master of the craft, somebody that you just don't even need to babysit, look at, just, hey, tell me when the job's done type of guy. And although that's really nice, it's bad for business because ultimately you get a little lazy with people like that. Maybe some of you agree. Maybe you have that one guy or crew that, you don't really have to implement policy. You don't really have to implement systems. You kind of just let them do it the way they want to do it because you know it'll be done and it'll be done right. And although that was great, what that did was it put me in a real bad position when he retired. And what that did, unfortunately, was make me say, okay, I got to get some more systems in this business to accommodate overcoming dependency on skill. And if you are dependent on skill, and that is not only when it's someone else's skill, but your own skill, that's never a good thing. So, in other words, like if you're actually doing the work and no one else can do it like you, we know that that's not a good thing. You can't scale that. Okay. You can't scale skill. Remember that you can't scale skill. Okay. So, what I needed to do at that point in time was do one of the hardest things I've ever had to do was to step in and really redefine the role of a project manager. And I did that with Ray, and Ray's attitude was just outstanding. His skill set needs a lot of refinement, but he was willing to learn. So what allowed us to do though during that time of I would just say turbulence, because the thing about it is we're flying like a fighter jet in terms of production, right? We didn't stop. Like there's no like 2 week break to just like hang out and figure out how to get Ray up to where Louis was in terms of production. So it took a lot of my time to kind of bounce back and forth and to kind of really just, make sure that although, Ray's team was now being led by Ray, who had just came on board a month and a half prior. I had to make sure that the standard was still there as if Louis was working, right? So that required a lot of my time being on the job. But what it did was it opened up my eyes and it created a new opportunity for Shamel. So what was cool was, and I may have said this in a podcast, but just a recap here, is that I sent Shamel over to Ray's job. And I had him work there for 3 days to just kind of train him on the way we do things. And although that it compromised Shamel's job a little bit because, there's no room for error. You really can't remove a project manager from a job. Two awesome things happened. One, it allowed someone else on Shamel's crew to step up and take ownership and lead that job that Shamel was gone, which opened up my eyes to that person's capability. And it's so interesting what happens when we give people opportunity. You really get to see what they do with it. Now, they either take it and run with it or they fold. But at the end of the day, you at least know what they're going to do when given the opportunity, and that's still very important. And in my case, Dan stepped up and did a great job. And then Shamel went over there to Ray's job and really refine things and actually just showcase to me the value in Shamel and his ability to teach and lead. And it's just, guys, I can't take credit for this. Although, yes, like I'm good at putting pieces together, but you can only put pieces together in the beginning. The company runs because of the great people inside of it. And if you've achieved any amount of success, you obviously are nodding your head saying that's 100% true, because ultimately, you guys know my passion toward hiring. It's about the recruiting process. But what's interesting is if you put a lot of people together who have like values, like character, like mindset, um, culture occurs. And the culture then propels the character and it holds people to a certain standard that will actually, what's interesting is it'll wean out those that don't align with that culture. So we've kind of created a petri dish in my company of just healthy mindset, motivated individuals that come to work on time, ready to go. And anyone that doesn't align with that, even if they do slip through the cracks in my hiring process, which is freaking rare, then they won't last, So anyway, not going too far on that tangent, just saying that that's where we were in that position with Ray, really just having to get him up to speed. And the hard part about that is that, and this is the most interesting thing, is that Louis had a team with Ray on it and two others that, because Louis just made it so easy, I never really dove into the details of what was going on that crew as much as I should have. And because Louis was so good and Ray being good, the other two kind of just got to coast. And it didn't take long for me to recognize that they weren't contributing the way they needed to. And they both got let go in the company, which made room for two others. I got Jeremy and Bo now. They're phenomenal, phenomenal leaders of their household, leaders of themselves. They come to work with a good attitude. They love the company. They show up every day, and they are great support systems for Ray. Both know how to paint now. One has painted; he can spray and do everything. The other one needed some refinement, but he went to a trade school to learn industrial coding or something. So it didn't take long for him to grasp the concepts, and they just do great. So that's a team of three. So they got a team of four, team of three, and now on the flooring side. You guys know I do a little bit of flooring. I actually pulled Julio, which is my father-in-law's helper, away from flooring, and he is now the crew leader. And I would say that the interesting thing about my good buddy Julio, who I'm so glad to have as my third crew leader, project manager, is his mindset and his willingness to learn. I mean, he's up late at night watching YouTube videos on different things and sending me screenshots of different tools and things that we need. And it's so fun to work with someone like that because they make you better. And if you have an experience having someone in your business that pushes you to be better, because ultimately, like, he wants feedback from things that he's investing in. And if I'm the type of person that doesn't buy into that, like, no, we don't need that, or no, don't worry about that, man. We'll do it this way. Like, what does that do? It just cuts off his creativity. And the interesting part about creativity in business, when you let people utilize their individual creative nature, is the fact that your customers experience something that really is unique and divine. That certain energy that comes with someone that is so passionate about their job. And when someone is so passionate about what they do and they showcase to you that as a customer, it translates to ultimately like a love for the passion and the trade that the person has, but more so the customer just sees it as different, and they appreciate that so much because it is their house, and that gives you that above and beyond experience. When was the last time you had someone come over to your house and do a service and you just knew they loved it? And it's almost like, well, like, wow, thank you, man. I'm so glad I ran into you. You're an expert and you love what you do. I'm so happy that we met, as opposed to somebody who's just going through the motions. And I think if you cut off people's creativity, if you don't let them utilize their creativity to make you better because you don't answer the call, then you're just shutting off that valve and they'll just stop. And we don't want that. We want people to bring fresh ideas. We want them to, try things differently if they feel like it's a better way. And I just bought into that with Julio, and it's so cool to see, man. He's really into it. So I went and bought him a van. It was a no brainer. So we got the third van. So exciting. And then I have him and Alan. Alan's a newer guy coming in, and he moved into town. And just everyone loves him. He fit right in, and so it's them two working. That's interesting for me. Those of you know, my motto is 4 or 3, but we're gonna try the 2 route. And the reason why is because I don't have the pressure to find these big jobs, which usually, obviously they come, but I need to staff the other guys for those. But what I'm learning is that a lot of small jobs are slipping through the cracks that I would have normally priced way higher to accommodate 3 and 4. So I didn't have to break up my team. And what I'm noticing is that, hey, you know what? Some of these customers don't care how fast we do the job, obviously. And I don't really need to use that as a selling point. I can come in a little bit lower, increase my chances of getting the sale, and keep these 2 guys staffed as long as I can, doing 2 jobs a week, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, even if we hit these little jobs that I otherwise would never get or usually overlook, now I have someone making up for that lead flow. So it's so interesting that I don't even really have to turn up the lead volume in order to accommodate a third crew, which I kind of knew. But like, when you're actually doing it and you're like, okay, we're in fight or flight mode, sort of, we got to make sure we have enough jobs for a third crew. Now that I'm in it and I'm aware, I'm like, man, okay, cool. Maybe we can dial up the marketing a little bit. But really nothing's really changing, just more revenue, which is really interesting. So it's so cool when you actually have the pieces in place and you can pull the trigger and you can move forward and try something new in your business, and look at the results and say, well, that was interesting because I thought one way and now it turned into a different outcome, and now I can build off of that. And you only see that when you actually do it. It's so funny, with Dripjobs. And I use this because, you guys have to realize I'm a normal guy, just like you. Okay. Not saying that you thought I was anything else, but in some cases you look at, like, like a software company, and think like, man, like, there had to be a lot of things going on and a lot of big decisions that had to be made to build something like that. And it's like, no, I'm just a normal guy, but I took the step forward to try it. I didn't know anything about software other than I had a vision for what I wanted, and I needed it in my business, and I know other people needed it. And the first version of Dripjobs was horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible. I mean, it was nothing that it is now. It was terrible. I hated many things about it. Things didn't work. Those of you who hung with me in the beginning, I love you. But the cool thing is, but because I had it, it was almost like, you know, the rockiness of starting out was gone, and the seas were calm, and I can refine at that point in time. And those of you who are aspiring to do things in your business, you might look at the big thing coming up, and you might say, that's scary. I don't really know, and it's a big investment, and I don't want to fail, right? Getting another crew or getting out. And it's like, I wish you could see the other side and realize how easy the decision is if you could see the other side. And the funny thing is that the other side is what you want it to be, and you can create that based on what you know and how much energy you put toward that outcome that you want. Don't go into it with the mindset that you're going to fail. Go in with it with the mindset that, like, success is defined the way you want to define it. Everyone defines success differently. So you might look at starting another crew like, I got to get more jobs. I gotta get more people. I can't find good help. No, it's like, no, I got to start another crew because there's a legacy that needs to happen here, and it's going to elevate the entire company when they see that we're going to grow, and I can do it. I already did it. I just need to do more of it. You know, so mindset in business is so valuable. And it's not so much when you're making big business decisions. It's also when you're doing estimates. It's when you're hiring somebody. It's when, I mean, that's why we did a little mindset training here on the podcast. But I just want to share that with you with a little bit more enthusiasm today. Is look, I'm still growing my business, and things are still scary for me. I'll be honest. Like, it's just like, man, like, the workload gets more, and it's like, but on the other side of it, it's like, okay, this wasn't as bad as I thought. And it's always like that. And it's so interesting. So you're always going to be taking risks in business. And for me, I look at the biggest risk that you ever took was starting it. So anything beyond that is less of a risk and easier to do than it was when you first started your business. So I talked to someone the other day, and he said something along the lines of, "It's almost like I feel like I don't deserve to be here." Like, it's almost like I feel like I'm on edge because I don't want it to be taken away, because it's almost like I'm in someone else's house, right? Like, I'm going to be asked to leave. And I'm like, dude, you created a business in America and produced a job which produced income from your own devices. That is amazing. There are people all over in the world every day that you see that work jobs that have no control over their own income, or not only just their income, what they do in those jobs. Maybe it's not even something they want to do. And really, what that comes down to is a lack of confidence. And I talk about confidence a lot in this podcast because I want you to take some of it, and I want you to actually think about it and say, I'm amazing at my business. I am going to transfer that energy to my customers in a way that they can't deny me. And I did a sales training. If you listen to the whole sales training, I think it was a podcast before this. It's almost like you go in with the mindset that, like, the only reason you're going to say no to me is simply because of my price. Everything else is like, I want you to honestly feel bad that you didn't hire me. And if I accomplish that through the value that I give you and the way that I convey trust, not only with the software I'm using, but the way that I'm communicating to you and the way that I'm educating you on the process, I want you to feel bad if you choose someone else. I want you to be like, man, like, all right, well, I want them to be the second best choice. That's the mentality, and I think it just really matters. Like, you might be having a bad day. All right. Well, when you look at a bad day in comparison to legacy that you could be leaving your family because you created a business and you changed the course of the lives of everyone around you and all those that you love, overcome the emotions of your little bad day when it comes time to do your estimates and engage with your customers, because your customers and the investment that you make, and I want you to think of this, the energy that you give your customers is like an investment. It's like a seed that you're planting, especially when it comes to, estimates. And it's like you go in with that mindset of like, I'm having a bad day. I haven't sold jobs in a while. Well, guess what? All that's going to do is transfer to your customer. And in other words, they're going to feel this cloud coming in their door. No, it needs to be like fresh start. Like if you're a quarterback, you throw an interception, you're going to dwell on the interception? No, you're going to go out there thinking you're going to throw a touchdown every single time. And that's the mindset. So many things to unpack here. I hope you got something out of it. Really, this was just a matter of just outlining what's going on, the mindset behind it, how I'm still growing too. That's why I love doing this podcast, because I'm kind of like, reporting as I'm going through my growth and development and hitting new levels and different things like that. I mean, at one point I will honestly say that starting a third crew was scary, and I'm in it now. And I'm like, this is nothing. This is nothing. We got this. I know how to schedule. And I will say that Drip Jobs is making it happen. Yeah, I know. Like you can switch. No, Drip Jobs is powerful. It's a great tool. There's nothing else in the world like it. I promise you. And if you're going to grow a company, you need something like this. You really do. I mean, if you find something else that does similar to what Drip Jobs does, you need to tell me. You really need to do. You really need to tell me. If you haven't used it yet, you got to try it. It's free. Just sign up and try it and see what we're talking about here. We're hitting major goals within that company, and we're doing amazing features. Just released Google Calendar, which is great for scheduling and all the different things. We just released an awesome feature. This feature allows you to schedule different events. So, for example, like Chris, which I didn't even mention. Sorry, you guys know Chris kind of is my project manager / supervisor, and he kind of does estimates. He does a lot, man. He's my unicorn, man. Great, amazing employee, and friend. Goes in. I can go in. All right, Chris, you got a payment collection today at 10:30 at this place. You got a punch out here 11:30 at this place. You got a scope clarification with the customer at 9:30 here, and all that loads into his Drip Job schedule, and the customer gets notified of each one. I mean, it's phenomenal, phenomenal. I mean, so good, so good. So try it out, dripjobs.com, of course. And listen, if you got something out of this episode, message me, please. I'd love to hear about it. And not only that, guys, we do the business breakthroughs. Please join me. Let's get fired up. Let's talk about what's going on in your business. Don't worry about people hearing about it. I mean, I get people that say, well, Tanner, can I do a business breakthrough, but can I not put it on? And I'll say, well, I mean, number one, I get motivated when I know this is going to amplify. So, my energy might be a little bit less if we're in a private setting. And number two, there's a little accountability factor when you put it out there like that, right? And I think you're going to be missing out on that. So, typically with my schedule, the answer is no. I really like to maximize my schedule. And by putting it out on the podcast, that's what allows me to do that. But again, you're going to be missing out on that accountability factor, that you're putting out things to the universe that say, hey, I'm going to make this change. I'm going to do this. And hopefully you'll find that any advice I give you is from the heart and mostly based off my own experience. So book that. It's in the description of this podcast. So thank you guys for listening. I hope this fired you up today. Do that thing. Do that one thing that you're waiting on doing. Just see what happens. All right. Catch you guys in the next one. Hey, thanks so much for checking out the Contractor Secrets podcast. Stick around. I am going to drop in a short testimonial that one of our awesome heavy hitters in Drip Jobs had agreed to give out for us. So if you want to hear a little bit about how Drip Jobs is helping contractors, stick around for the end of this episode and you can listen in. What's up, everyone? I'm here with my good friend, Danny V. Atlanta. Him and I shared some good time at the PCA Expo, but we've been friends before that. He actually came on a business breakthrough at one point in time. We went over sales and some other good things. He is a very, very professional at this point, Drip Jobs user. You've been using it now for about 6-7 months. And you've agreed to do this little spotlight, and this is really just to showcase what it is. Really, it's a direct help for me so I can continue to, get Drip Jobs as many people's hands as possible, bro. So tell me, before you signed up, man, what was the apprehension? And did Drip Jobs exceed your expectations?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, man. I didn't have any type of system, any type of software, so I had no idea what to expect, to be honest with you. And I was just like, hey, when I read about it, when I heard you talking about it through podcast or through the group, on Facebook, I was just like, maybe I need to give it a try. Let me try to see what it's all about and if it's worth my investment. So, I just kind of took that leap, man, and I was like, let's go, let's do it.
Now, in retrospect, that was a good question. But now, when you look back, and what's going on now, would you say that it's been worth the investment?
Oh man, it's absolutely, man. I mean, without a doubt, like I always say, it totally changed the way it changed my life, the business, and the way I do things. The face of the company, looks more professional. Um, Keeping everything in, structured, organization,
Yeah.
uh, and so just so it's a friendly user, man. It's easy to use once you get the hang of it, and after that is
Cake.
it's just easy. Yeah, man, it's cake, man. So
Yeah.
so I'm enjoying it, man, and I mean, there's so much I can say, man. I definitely encourage people to really invest in it, man. It's a really really good investment for your business.
Let me ask you this: has it helped you sell more jobs?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Now,
I so there's a few things that I learned. I catch a few things from you as well. So before I got drip jobs, I was doing quotes when I got home after a long day of work. And now I don't leave the homeowner's house
there you
with
go.
without me finishing that quote and presenting it to them and potentially selling it. So now I don't come home
I love
looking
that.
into doing quotes. So I would say that was one of my biggest things, and man, it dreaded on me. I'm like, man, I got to go home and do these quotes. Now it's just like I enjoy doing quotes on the spot. I got drip jobs, you know what I mean? It's gonna take me 15, 20 minutes, do this quote and let's sell it. And I
And
don't
the
have to worry about it.
customers love that, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. They're like,
Even if
oh
it's a high price, but they just love the idea. Like when you tell them, like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in the car and work up your quote for you," they're like, "Really?"
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They were like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, I'll be right back. I'm just getting in my truck, work the quote out. We're going to discuss it. And I've been able to get more jobs, definitely selling
100%.
them on the spot.
100%. It's gonna happen. So we wanted to make it. So do you have people? Are you using it on the iPad when you do it?
So I always carry, for some reason, I always carry my Mac to do to
That's
do
good.
it while I'm doing it on in my truck, and then I'll take my iPad with me and have them sign on there
Love that.
and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I use
That's
both
good.
of them.
That's
Yeah,
good, man. So
yeah.
last part of this, man, dude, thank you first for showcasing the value. But if somebody's listening to this and they're like, man, I can't see paying $147 a month for software, right? Like to the average consumer in comparison to like Joist, which is like cheap as dirt, and some of the other things. What would you say to that person about the 147?
Man, if to look at it from my perspective, I would be like, hey, man, look at 147 divided by how many jobs you get in the month. And before you know it, it's just like, okay, $10. This goes $10 towards drip jobs. And before you know it, I mean, it's paid within the month. And I mean, literally, if you want to count one job, you can pay with one job, you can pay drip jobs, to be
Well,
honest with you.
honestly, if it's a good size job, you could pay for drip jobs for 3 years.
There you
Uh,
go. Yeah.
if drip jobs picked up a job that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten through maybe an automated message that went out 2, 3 weeks later.
Mhm.
There's so much here, man. But Danny, dude, this is great. I think somebody listening to this probably got some value. You're the man as always, one of our biggest drip jobs fans. And
Thanks,
good.
man.
I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. I mean,
Uh,
I